school safety. Of course, everybody's concerned about that. There are a number of different aspects that we have questions about. I'm going to name 3, and as you pass the microphone, you have to pick one. Area number 1. What policy changes could be made to ensure that students and staff receive clear, consistent, appropriate consequences for racial harassment and hate speech? The bullying aspect that has been mentioned. That's one of the areas. The second area is SROs, school resource officers. What is your perspective on increasing the number of school resource officers as a safety message? What role do you think that they have? So it's bullying, school resource officers, and last, our schools have become increasingly dangerous due to shootings. What are your thoughts on how we can protect our citizens, our children, from guns? So you get to pick one. Bullying, SROs, guns.
Okay. Well, I currently work for the Department of Justice, so I'm very familiar with the all of those issues, whether it's our funding of stopbullying.gov or the work that we do with school resource officers. I think that in the conversations that I've had with law enforcement across the country and the importance of an SRO is something that Harford County Public Schools can certainly benefit from, and they do have a specific role. It's just, unfortunately, when it comes to law enforcement, that position is number one, it's not an accredited position, so you're taking it because you're an officer and you're just being added another task. They need specific training, they need to have the respect to do the job they do, which is to be that connection between the community, home, and the school, and to help with youth and law enforcement engagement.
I select bullying as the topic. So if you look up preventing bullying online, actually I think it's the Department of Justice website is one of the first ones that comes up. And it basically says you need to change the culture, not just in the school, but outside the schools in the community. That is what I would like to advocate for, is saying what can we do as a whole community to fix the problems for the next generation, not just in the schools, but all over.
I'll go to bullying, although all 3 are a big concern to me. My oldest son is 46, and he said to me on the day he graduated from high school in the 1980s, he said, "Mom," he said, "it's not about graduation. You never understood. It was not about graduation. It's about surviving high school." And I've never forgotten those words from him, because my son had a good home, he had lots of supports, and he knew he could come to me for anything, as well as my other children. So bottom line with this bullying is it has to stop, and we need a zero tolerance when it comes to bullying with these kids. And I'm not sure how to begin, but we need to do something about it, because people tell me they write MSDE and they don't get any, Maryland State Department of Education, they don't get responses back. People aren't hearing back when they file the forms for bullying, and we need to change that.
Been appointed to a very public office, and you have to deal with an issue like that when you barely know the names of your colleagues. It was scary. The fact that this has continued pretty much on a regular basis ever since then is even scarier. I live in Harford Grace. Harford Grace was one of the first communities in the county to decide to put SROs in the schools. And quite frankly, I had mixed feelings about it. I'm one of these people that's old enough to remember when you could park your car in the east parking lot of the Capitol building, walk in the rotunda and ask the sleepy security guard where your congressman's offices were and walk down the hall. And it's not like that anymore. And I think it should be like that. So when the SRO idea came up, I wasn't all that crazy about it, because it seemed to me like another lock on the door, another barrier. But what happened in our community was very different. Our SROs became the face of the community and became the face of law enforcement in the community. So what happened was our students didn't see Officer Humphreys or whoever the SRO was as a guy in a car and a uniform with a gun, but that man had a face and a name and a purpose and a role, and thus the idea of law enforcement stopped being an enemy and started becoming a friend. And I think that that's something that could benefit all our schools, and I support SROs. And to be perfectly honest with you, I'm definitely in support of them as long as they're on the sheriff's department's budget.
All three issues that have been raised are very important and need to be addressed. I will pick SROs. I think SROs need to be in schools. I think they need to be in every school, quite frankly. And I was very gratified to hear about the county executives program where you work collaboratively with the sheriff to have SROs in every school. I think we need to have that because SROs perform a very important role in enforcing security and discipline in every school. So I think SROs still need to be supported, and we need to have SROs. And frankly, that can address other issues as well. For the record, I do not support arming teachers. I think that is totally wrong.
Thank you for that.
Frankly, the teachers don't, for the most part, don't support that either. So I think SROs are properly trained. They're law enforcement officers. They are the ones that should be armed as appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. Bullying is going to be mine also. And I think, first of all, the guidance counselors in our schools make a huge difference because I know that our local school system also has a very strong counseling program. And one of the issues that they address every year with every child in the schools is the issue of bullying. So we can't afford to lose counselors for that reason alone. The other thing is, as I look at the policies, the Board of Education policies for Harford County, I find them to be very superficial and very vague.
Yes.
I think that what we need to do is change the language in some of those policies and really say what we mean and give consequence. If you do this, this is the consequence of your action, and let's follow through on that.
Yeah.
SROs.
But I don't, there is no magic bullet. There's no silver bullet. There's nothing that we're gonna be able to do or put in schools that will address the issues that we're confronting with today. But going back to SROs, while I understand some folks feeling that you put a police officer in the school and that's gonna stop something from happening,
No.
that's not the way it works. Sometimes you can introduce those kinds of things and it makes the situation worse for some people. And so we gotta be very, very careful about what we do in our schools and how we do that. I'm telling you this because I've been doing this kind of work for over 30 years. This is not my, I'll share my background with you later on. But I know for a fact that just because you put a police officer in a school doesn't make that school any safer than if you didn't have one in there. There are other things that you can do.
I want to talk about racism. You know what? That's probably worth repeating. I want to talk about racism. It is. I think I live in this little bubble. I'll be the first one to admit it, right? I live in this little fairy tale or whatever, and my kids are happy and healthy and all this. But I got to tell you, it is rampant amongst our community. It doesn't matter which school you go to.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
We have to talk about it. We can't just say, let's talk. I want to talk about racism. I want to talk about it openly. I want to understand more because I don't necessarily, far from understanding it. But I need to know more, and I want to educate my kids, and I want to educate my friends, and I want us to all educate each other. I just want to open our communication about racism.
Yeah, I'll speak to safety. I think we just made a giant step forward when we hired our new safety officer. I have a lot of confidence in what he plans to do and what he's doing. But again, from the trenches, the first thing I would do is, for shooters, is I would change the alarm system so that we don't have one alarm for all kinds of emergencies, that we have a specific alarm system for shooter situations.
Makes sense.
Okay, I'm gonna
Practical.
go a little bit off of that. I'm gonna tie it all together. So I think as a counselor who works with bullying and an SRO, and who has been in a school with a gun, that the key word we need to remember is relationships. I have a SRO who is absolutely amazing, who is our track and field coach, who is our cross-country coach, and who is making relationships with my kids. I have relationships with my kids. I have 30-year-old men who come back and see me because no, I have not left my school despite the fact that it's hard. I have been in a school with a gun and I have dealt with that situation. I hear about fights before they happen. We need SROs in schools to build relationships. We need them to be appropriately trained through NASRO, which is the National Association of School Resource Officers, because they actually do have things that they are trained on, and they do have curriculum that they deliver. And I work with mine all the time. I think that we need to have more involvement with parents so that people understand what bullying is and what it actually means. So I'm back to, again, I think the key word here is relationships for all of it.